Ella McCay is a comedy that follows the titular character, played by Emma Mackey. She becomes her state's governor and has to juggle that along with the many issues in her personal life, including her estranged father attempting to reconnect with her. So this movie is juggling quite a few things here. One of the recurring subjects throughout the movie is the truth. The movie digs into how sometimes we bend the truth to spare people from heartache. Sometimes it is necessary to protect people from hurtful information, but it's also sometimes very important that people hear the truth, as it'll sometimes set us free. It's a very nuanced discussion that should be treated with a case-by-case scenario. The movie touches on that discussion without ever solidifying when you should be truthful versus when you shouldn't. It doesn't really give clarity on the subject of honesty so much as it just flirts with it. This movie is also focused on meeting expectations, how we sometimes feel the need to show up a certain way in our connections with others, whether that be friends, family, partners, or jobs. The movie touches on how it's better to just be present and supportive rather than having to prove something or show up as the perfect version of yourself. That subject could have also had some sort of bigger statement in the end. It is addressed through several characters, even the ones that don't really matter, but the movie does little more than flirt with that subject too. And then the movie also loosely touches on the spectacle of politics, how success in politics often comes from being liked as opposed to how impactful your work is. But just to clarify, if you're worried about this movie being too political, do not worry at all, because the political aspects are an absolute joke. There are like 2 scenes of this movie that are the big political dialogue scenes, and they're just full of very simple cookie cutter dialogue that you would expect in a family movie. It's the type of easily digestible dialogue that is tailored toward viewers who barely keep up with politics. There's no diving into the complexities of these issues because the movie is more of a family drama. And as far as family dramas go, this one is pretty sloppy. It meanders back and forth between the aforementioned subjects and does not do any of them justice. There's just no real substance, like all of the commentary on how we show up in relationships never forms anything meaningful despite being reiterated ad nauseum. The movie doesn't give that any sort of culmination, nor does it give any closure to the subject of honesty and lying to protect people. Instead, it culminates with closure on the conflicts that pertain to her career, despite those being secondary to the family drama for most of the movie. There just wasn't enough focus on that part of the plot. The issues in Ella's marriage and her relationship with her dad take center stage for much of the movie, and neither of them have a satisfying conclusion. The stuff with her husband, Ryan, almost gets there, but it feels like they were missing like one more scene in the end to tie a bow on that aspect of the story. Throughout the movie, Ryan just feels too distant from her. He feels less like a husband and more like a questionable boyfriend because we don't see more than like 2 seconds of their home life. One could easily argue that sure, he's not supposed to feel super close to her, but the problem is that at no point in the movie does he feel like her husband. And the big piece of conflict between them that the entire movie is built on just hardly even works. Basically, Ella has a skeleton in her closet that could damage her political career. It's the main piece of tension, but I'm hard-pressed to even call it a scandal. Not gonna spoil it, but in this day and age, absolutely nobody would care. Sure, there is something to be said about the fact that the movie takes place in 2008, but still, given the circumstances of the situation, like what actually happened, it's not a scandal. That's just one of the ways that the movie feels too cute. The other way is in the humor. This feels like a good time to mention that this movie is from 20th Century Studios, which is owned by Disney. That should give context to many of the issues in this movie, but in case I need to spell out how that gives context to the humor, Disney movies are often overstuffed with incredibly dry humor, and this movie is no exception. This movie cannot go more than 60 seconds without a joke out of fear that the viewers will get bored, so it is jam-packed with the most bland jokes that dorky grandparents everywhere will get a kick out of. They attempt to make every little interaction quirky or silly, when in reality they're just interactions, and since there are so many attempts at humor, the jokes that potentially could have worked did not have enough breathing room to do so. We are also well past the point where swear words are funny, but since this is a Disney movie, swear words alone are treated as jokes. And since it's PG-13, they're allowed 1 F-bomb, so of course, the 1 F-bomb is treated as one of the movie's biggest jokes. Literally a grown woman saying the F word and then other adults being like, but that's a no-no word. The movie has some subject matter that is for adults, but the tone makes it feel like it's a kid's movie, like it's a family movie from the 2000s. The score also contributes to it feeling dated. It's a contemporary movie, but it has the score of like a kid's fantasy adventure film, lots of flutes and strings. There's also just too much music. There were some scenes that had music playing over it to make the tone more playful, and it just clashed horribly with the subject matter. I wish I could at least say more about the characters, but none of them them are interesting. They're all just the tropes that don't subvert your expectations or surprise you in any way. The funny but insightful aunt, the quirky driver slash cop, the dorky younger brother who was easily the cringiest character in the movie, and then the estranged father who, despite seeming more relevant in marketing, hardly impacted the story at all. I would not go all the way as to say that he could have been written out of the movie, but he's not far from that territory. It just feels like another subpar Disney movie that is suffering an identity crisis. It doesn't have a clear idea of who the target audience is, and the plot is just very scattered. The movie overall was just disappointing. It's incredibly dry and juggles too many subjects, failing to do any of them justice. I can't recommend it to anyone other than families. If you've got kids at home, you don't mind them hearing some profanity, and you just want something mildly entertaining to fill the time, it could work as a streaming movie. Otherwise, skip it. There's not enough substance or originality to make it worth your time, and I can't recommend paying money to see this. Thank you for watching this video. If it brought you any value, please give it a like. It really helps this channel out. I will see you later this week with my review of Avatar: Fire and Ash.